Okay, so this screenshot is from a book called Healing Trauma by Peter Levine. You can see the top left before it's green. At the very top, it says, I remember when I shared my observations about animal behavior with this dude, chief park biologist in Africa. He nodded excitedly and said, yes, yes, that's true. Before we release captured animals back into the wild, we must absolutely be sure that they have done what you just described, which is like the shaking, or they say trembling. You can see here. If they have not trembled and breathed that way before they are released, they will not survive. They will die.
What book is this?
It's called Healing Trauma by Peter Levine.
Okay. It's interesting.
Dude, when I read this, I was like fucking fascinated. I was like, holy shit, animals do this and we don't, and we're animals.
It's like,
dude, literally, it blew my freaking, one of the many things that blew my freaking mind like a couple years ago. It's insane. Because look, keep reading, right? The bottom left. Although humans rarely die from trauma, if we do not resolve it, our lives can be severely diminished by its effects, even described as a living death.
yeah, that's wild.
And think about all the people you know or have seen on TV or whatever the heck, where they're like just eh. And like they're not excited about stuff and they're, just going through the motions just over and over. Or they're just sad about something that happened 30 years ago. Or I look at my mom, to be honest, like after everything happened with my dad, she's not the same person, man. I can tell. She doesn't really tell. My sister isn't really paying attention, but like I can see it in her eyes. Her personality is not all there. She's starting to forget stuff.
How old is she?
65.
It
You know,
sucks.
Alzheimer's, dementia, like same symptoms, similar. It's wild. Yeah, this is interesting because it talks about the human side. So starting on the left side, moving out of this frozen state can be a fiercely energetic experience. And so animals, they don't have a rational brain, right? They don't have that prefrontal cortex. They don't give it a second thought because they don't think, right? They just do it, which is why animals naturally shake. So when we begin to move out of that response, I thought this was really interesting. We are often frightened by the intensity of our own energy and aggression. And we brace ourselves against the power of that. And when you brace yourself for the power of that, you're tightening and you're just keeping it in, right? And this is how we bottle things up. And think about that phrase, like you're I can't think of it right now, but you've probably heard some sort of quote where it's like you're afraid of your own potential, right? You're afraid of what you're capable of. I can't think of the quote, but it's like you're not afraid of what you haven't done, you're afraid of what you could do. So I don't know, something like that. It's just an interesting pattern of like being afraid of your own energy, right?
Damn. Well, I can't. I want to like study this stuff, or I can't wait for them to like study this stuff. It's like energy is stored in the nervous system. Like, how is it stored? And where does it go when it's stored? You
Why do you think
know,
I'm starting this, dude? Because I haven't found anyone else doing this.
like you could show the screenshot and be like, where does the energy go? How is it
Yeah.
stored? Why does this happen? Like, just bringing it up will blow a lot of people's minds. Like, I didn't know about this stuff. None of us at BMP knew about this stuff.
Yeah.
And this is like core fundamental being an animal shit. This isn't even human
Yeah.
shit. It's animal
Right.
shit.
Exactly. Now you're starting to get it. So it's stored in the nervous system and it's stored in the soft tissues and the fascia. And what I felt and still am feeling to some degree is, imagine, picture the nervous system. It's like a tree. It's like roots. It's like rope, like little strings kind of going out. And it's like the tips get frayed and become less sensitive. And so kind of, I don't know if it's stored like in the actual wires of the nerve, like the nerves themselves, and that's why they become desensitized. Um, but it gets trapped there. It gets trapped in the fascia, when where you have like some muscle overlapping another muscle, and there's fascia, and they stick, and the energy can't flow anymore. It's like a clog in a pipe. It just gets bottled up there. And so my therapist guy Don, who worked on me on the table, like he's literally physically separating that, and it releases it. Yeah, it's wild, dude. It's just crazy.
Yeah, when I come visit, I want to go see your dude.
Yeah, you'll have to book him 2 months in advance.
Okay.
He's literally booked out.
Okay. That's cool. I got time.
Yeah, you got time. So humans don't shake. We can, but we don't. And energy can be released with or without the shaking, which is great news because a lot of people probably don't want to start shaking just yet. I told this to my friend, one of my friends who lives in San Francisco several years ago, and he started doing the shaking thing. And then he told me literally like 4 months ago that he was doing it. I didn't know he did it way back then, but he started. And yeah, he's been doing that for a while.
Do you think there will come a day when you don't, when you've shaken it all out?
Yes and no. So I've stored so much that I know I still have some and I need to get it out. Like when I go to the sauna and I'm doing, the mind work stuff and the breath work stuff, I feel it. It's like a bodysuit that I'm wearing. I've done a lot of the kind of banana spots that are kind of everywhere. I've done a lot of getting rid of that. Now I feel like there's just like coating, for lack of a better word. It's like a bodysuit of this energy stuff that I try to like get out. So yes, I think you can, just like the animals, right? They shake it off and then they just get up and go about their day. But I have 3 decades of stuff built up. And I mean, that's, 30 years. So, well, and this is an interesting thing, right? Okay, well, what age does this start happening? And you start doing it to yourself pretty early because kids are freaking smart, for lack of a better word, smart, right? Like
Oh yeah,
they're conscious.
I would say almost all the trauma I've experienced in my life was when I was a little kid,
Yeah.
because you don't
And
really know how to deal with anything. So it's like when it happens, it just happens to you. You don't have any way to deal with it.
you don't have a way to deal with it. And you're a kid, you're a child, and you don't know about the world yet. And so from your perspective, everything revolves around you.
Mhm.
And so you
And
make
yeah,
it about you and you
and
think it's your fault.
what what you see is the whole world.
And even before you're conscious, let's say 5 years old or something, your nervous system gets tuned between like ages 0 and 3. And guess what you use to process your emotions? Your nervous system. So that's getting tuned from your family environment between ages 0 and 3. And it's even happening before that when you're in the womb, because that's when it's literally growing. And so if your mom's all stressed out or some stressful event happens, guess what? It's getting transferred to you in some ways.
Damn, ain't that something?
Yep.
Trauma from before you were even born.
And this is what generational trauma is. There's that. And then the way your parents are, because your nervous system, it's almost like a radio receiver. Remember at the beginning of this, we were talking about how I'm kind of like sensitive to people's vibes and I'll start to become that way. That's the nervous system tuning in.
Yeah.
And so imagine if I'm a kid and my dad's being all chaotic or whatever, and then I tune into that and then I start to become that. And doing that enough, that just becomes the way that my body is now tuned.
No, I totally know exactly what you're talking about. Like I was raised by my dad. My dad was a single dad. And
Mhm.
I'm still like hyper tuned to his mood.
Yeah.
Like if he's in a bad mood, I feel it. It's like acid runs through my body.
Yep. Yep. And so that's like that acid. I haven't thought of that. It's a great word. That acid feeling is like what I've been carrying ever since my dad was diagnosed, which was what, 3 years ago now? No, 4 years ago, 5, something like that. And it's a lot of it's gone for sure, but it's hard to remember what your baseline is after it's been so long,
Yeah. Yeah. Your
right?
baseline just becomes that.
Well, it feels like that, but you can still do the work to get back to your original baseline. And a lot of this stuff, like as I was discovering the whole, what I'm calling mind works now, right? A lot of this self somatic energy meditation, I was like, fuck, there's so much to do. Because I realized like this is doing something, but it's chipping away. And I was like, fuck, man, there's just so much. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna not do it. Because fuck that. And then I met Don, and Don helped me he still does, but he releases so much. Like that video I showed you, that was after already seeing him for like 6 months. And that was the biggest release I'd had. But the one that week before that was actually a big one. And then that one was a huge one. And I have told him, I was like, oh, there's just so much energy. Like it just keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps coming. Like there's just so fucking much. And he's like, yeah, think about an atom bomb. It takes one hydrogen atom to split to cause an entire atom bomb explosion. It's just one little electron pop, and then there's an insane amount of energy in our bodies. We literally can't even comprehend it. It's powerful stuff. So going back to a lot of these symptoms, like they all make sense, thinking about, all of the animal stuff, all the shaking, all the trapped energy, how it affects the nervous system, how it affects our brain and body and everything. From the human perspective, right? Animals shake off their physical threats, their physical threat, trapped energy. We don't, as
Yeah,
humans, we don't really have physical threats as much, but we
that's true.
perceive threats, even if they're not physical, survival anymore. And our human brains and bodies do trap energy from perceived threats. And that could be social rejection, criticism, or even like little minor disagreements with other people.
Yeah, so we can pent up way more energy than a normal animal if we are harboring all the perceived threats, because there's, you know what I mean, there's so many more perceived threats than real threats.
Yeah, and they could be smaller, but there's more of them, and they happen over time. So over time, you stock up a lot, and we don't shake any of it off, but animals do.